Delighted to be here at the GPF Lewis House and joined by the Wealdstone Club chairman, Rory Fitzgerald. Firstly, Rory, thank you for the invitation down to GPF Lewis today. This is almost like a bit of a conversation, really, almost like a get to know. Obviously, you've been in the position that you are now as the club chairman for about 6 months. So I think it's best that you sort of introduce yourself. So you're a local fan of the club. How did you get into Wealdstone? Explain.
We've been club sponsor now. I think it's our 5th season. So originally I came into the club 5 years ago as club sponsor. And over them years, obviously, my relationship's grown with a number of people in the club. And I think it was December 17, they approached me about coming onto the board to help manage the club. So something I agreed to do, came onto the board, and then obviously January this year, it's obviously a change in the structure of the club. So the board thought I was probably the best position and qualified to take on the role. So I said I was happy to take it on an interim basis to help the club move forward and get to the end of the season, and then obviously we'd review it then. So yeah, that's where we are, and obviously thankfully we had some success on the pitch. Getting to the playoffs was obviously the objective at the start of the season, so achieving that was great, because obviously at Christmas it wasn't looking so likely, but you know, from January onwards our form was fantastic. It's a closer squad and smaller squad, and it seemed to work on the pitch, and hence obviously unluckily pipped in the semi-final.
And of course I saw you there at the semi-final at Woking. I think you'd cancelled your holiday actually to be there.
Yeah, no, I'd been away on business, so I flew back early. I was due to be out there till the Monday, so I couldn't cancel the Bath game because there was things I'd already had in the diary which couldn't change. So as soon as we'd won, I'd booked a flight that night to come back. So there's no way I could miss that. So.
That's fantastic as well, because that was one of the biggest games really for the club in recent history. So it's great that someone like the chairman can even cancel their plans just to be there. It's great to see, isn't it?
Well, no, it's important. It's important for me. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be there for the team, the management team, everyone. So it was unfortunate it finished the way it did, because for a large period of that game, I think we all thought that we were going to get through to the final, and I think had we got through to the final I would have fancied us to win. So it's just football, unfortunately, it doesn't always go the way you want it to.
So we talk about you and your role as the chairman. What do you sort of do at Wealdstone on a day-to-day basis?
In recent weeks it's been employing a new management team and helping with recruitment of staff and players, so players' contracts. And due to us being at the end of the season, there's a lot of commercial deals. All the major sponsorship deals come through me, and obviously I'm key in negotiating them and trying to get them over the line, speaking to new investors, because we have had so many changes in the board, we're trying to bring in some more people to help manage the club, because it needs it. There's only 4 of us on the board at the moment, and there's an awful lot that needs to be done and does go on, so we're looking to bring in some other people that can help with that. So largely that's what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. Obviously I do run 3 businesses, so I'm massively involved in them as well, but in between that, it's dealing with a manager, dealing with contracts, commercial deals, and a list of other not so glamorous jobs.
And of course commercial part of football is so massive, because there's only really 3 different types of revenue that football clubs make, and match day and broadcasting is one of them. So commercial on top of that's always really good, and you want to get the best for commercial stuff for Wealdstone, don't you?
Well, yes, it's huge. At this level, to be competitive and you need investment, so whether that's the directors, fans or commercial is key. So we're constantly trying to bring in new decent deals. I've done a load last year. We're trying to secure 3-year deals so we can retain them. So we've done that with the Wealdstone. There's a couple of others we did. We sold, I think, over 30 boards last year, double boards. So that was obviously important. We've retained them, so we're doing all the renewals for that and trying to get naming rights, trying to get stand sponsorship. There's a number of different. I've done the shirt sleeve this year, which is done on a new 2-year deal. So we're trying to get long-term deals rather than the yearly deals. Yeah, it's key for the club to move forward that we have these in place.
So we've heard what you do as your role as the chairman. As you've been at the club in this role for 6 months now, let's talk about your favourite moments on the pitch, because we've had some great moments on the pitch as we just briefly spoke about before. What's your favourite? Can you try and dissect it?
There's been a few, but I guess the standout one for me would be the Hemel game. We, everything was stacked against us, the odds at the beginning of the game. I don't think anyone really believed all the results would go the way they would. I was pretty confident we'd beat Hemel before the game, and then after the first half I wasn't so confident. But the boys come out second half, and Freddie and Jake got 2 good goals, and all the results went our way. So just the atmosphere, the fans were fantastic, and they stuck with the team even though the first half performance wasn't the best. They stuck with them, kept with them, and second half was a great performance, and we got the goals we needed and the results went our way, and then everything that went after the game was fantastic. So that was the standout one for me.
Of course, that was within your 6 month. Would you say that's your favourite moment of all time at Wealdstone, or do you think there's another?
That would be the standout one, as I said. There's been other games. Billericay last season, the season before, when we won in the FA Trophy quarter final. That was a fantastic result. There's been wonderful performance going to Woking this year, turning them over 2-0. It was a wonderful performance, and the fans were magnificent. So there's some other standout ones over the last, since I've been on the board.
Now let's talk about, obviously we just spoke about sort of in the last month there's been a few changes at the club. You've appointed Dean Brennan as the manager of the first team. When you went through that interview sort of process, did he stand out straight away for you?
Yeah, Dean was actually one of the first people I saw. So, because we interviewed so many, we spoke to over 25 people. So it was a big, it was a long process, and it was good to see so many people, because you could measure different managers off, each other on. They all work slightly differently, and they've all got their own methods. But yeah, Dean was certainly one of the standout ones from the front. The key thing, he had access to local talent. He knew the objectives we wanted. We wanted someone that, knew local talent, wanted to bring up and come in young players through, understood the club, understood the fans. As some very passionate fans and challenging times when it doesn't go our way. So yeah, he understood the club. He understood what we were trying to achieve. His scouting was unbelievable, because he'd been out of management since sort of January. He spent so much time going to games, watching football, watching sessions, and we was blown away by the research they'd done, the scouting players they had, the deals that they could get done quickly, which was important, because obviously Bobby leaving, the new man at the time, was critical. So it was important that he would work with us, work with the budget, and work the objectives we've got. He knows where we want to get the club, and he wants to work with us, which was really good. He understands where we're at. It is a slightly transitional season. We've had to rebuild the squad, new manager. But he was the standout one for us, and like I said, there were some amazing candidates, and it was quite humbling to see the amount of people that did want this job, and it just tells you what a big club it is. And the CVs, we had over 50 CVs. Obviously, I think we spoke to about 25, 26 people in the end, but out of all of them, he got the job, and that tells you everything. So yeah, he was the right man for the club at the right time, and I've got every confidence in Dean and Stuart that they will deliver. And already the signings they've made, they brought some, a mixture. We were lucky to retain 4 or 5 decent players, and with the new players we brought in, young and some experienced one, I'm really confident we'll do well this year. I'm excited to be part of it.
And of course, it would have been such a big appointment for you yourself, because it's the first as chairman of the club, but it also shows sort of what vision you have to take the club forward, say, in the next few years. Sort of explain where do you see Wealdstone in, say, 3 or 5 years' time?
Yeah, as you said, it's a massive responsibility to appoint a manager. It's probably one of the biggest things you'll do in a football club is appoint a manager. So it was important to me that we got the right person. We didn't want to rush, we didn't want to put bums on seats. So it was a long process, but it was the right process. And I think in the end, obviously, we got the right guy. The aim for us, we want the club to be playing at the next level, and we have to get that balance right from, it being sustainable and wanting to be ambitious. So the aim over the objectives we've set, Dean, is we want to be in the National League within the next 3 years. Ideally, we'd like it to be next year, but we're realistic. There is a fair bit of change that's happened this year, and with that change, new manager, it might take a little bit longer, but the aim is to be we want to be up and around the playoffs this year, and hopefully we'll achieve that with the squad we've got. And if we do it this year, fantastic. But if not, that's the aim. The next 3 years to get there. We don't want to, put Dean under too much pressure. But we've got a good budget. It's not the best budget in the league, but it's a good budget. We've got two good young, obviously, manager and assistant manager who will help us meet that. And, we're after a marriage, not a one-night stand. And hopefully, with the boys and the rest of the coaching staff that they're bringing in, we won't be far off it.
You talk about being in the National League within 3 years. That's your ultimate aim. Of course, Wealdstone fans will probably see that as a fantastic positive. I mean, we haven't been in the conference since 1988. So, fans will probably be missing that fifth tier of football. Is that the legacy you want to leave at this club, to be there?
Yeah, you just want... it's important to me. I've been successful in my business life, and, I want the club to be successful. I think we all do. I think we all want the same thing. I guess some people want it sooner than others, and some people might want to do it at all costs. Obviously, I'm not prepared to do that. Whilst I'm involved, it will be done in the right way. We'll spend what we can afford to spend, and we'll look to bring investment and look to get good people in and around the club, which we are doing. Hopefully we will achieve these things. It's just got to be done in the right way. We will make sure moving forward their structure, we're getting good value for money. We're bringing all of the best local talent in. I think for the last few years we've missed a trick. There's been lots of young talent going to lots of other clubs, and in my opinion, we're the biggest non-league club in West London. We should be attracting the best, and that's one of the objectives we set to Dean. Let's get all the best young talent in this area. We want them playing for Wealdstone, and we've got the best pitch, we've got the best training facilities, we've got the best fans, we've got so many positives around the club. So it's not hard to get people to come to Wealdstone player-wise. It's getting the right players and the right personnel and getting them to play for Wealdstone because they want to play for Wealdstone, not because any other reason. I think previously maybe that's not happened, but moving forward, the appointment of players is key. It's getting the right players, the right age, and add value. We want guys that we can sell on. They can go back playing a football league. It looks good on us, and it's another revenue. We need to bring in additional revenue. If we can bring young talent and they can move on to the next level and we can profit from it, then I think that's good for both parties.
You talk so much about young players there, and even ones going back into the pro game. I mean, that's happened so much at Wealdstone through the years. You've got even guys in the 80s like Vinnie Jones, Stuart Pearce, more recently Jermaine Beckford, Britta Sombalonga, Tom Pett, Luke O'Nien. There's so many names that have been involved in Wealdstone and are now back in the pro game. And you talk so much about age there. I do want to lead to a potential under-23s team. Of course, we have a full youth team anyway in terms of under 18s and lower than that, but what's sort of the incorporation of an under 23s team in terms of a possibility? Is that anything that can happen?
Yeah, it's something we were desperate to have this year. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen this year for one reason or another. Obviously, the changes we've had over the club over the last 6 months, our main focus has been getting the first team right, and obviously we've achieved that now, hopefully. So next season we will have an under 20. I think it's key. We need to get the best talent here, and if they're not quite ready for that, there needs to be a link from the under 18s. It's very hard for them to leave under 18s, go straight into the gap is huge, so we need something between the middle they can go to, and if they're not quite ready this season, they'll be ready next year, so we can get them playing there. And there needs to be a time with the first team. So yeah, we're all aligned on the board with that. We all want the under 23s team, and I think it would be good for Wealdstone. And it also helps that if guys that aren't in the first team are not playing, that they can have some games and game times and keep themselves fit and sharp. So unfortunately it won't happen this year, but it's something we would definitely making sure by Christmas that everything's in place for the following season. So yeah, that's important to us.
And of course there's so many professional teams with under 23 squads as well, and is that sort of the era that we're looking at now, to move into sort of a professional layout for a football club?
Well, yeah, one of the things we want to do is under 23s have an academy, so it brings revenue, putting them through college. There was a link with Stanwell before, that's unfortunately broken down, so we are looking at that structure and we want to get that right. So it does need proper planning, it needs a proper strategy, and that's what we're working on at the moment to implement that, so we've got it next year. So yeah, we want to bring young guys through, and at the moment we're having to go out and find some, so hopefully we can have the link from youth football into the 18s, into the 23s, and then eventually into the first team, because there's nothing better than seeing that. So we saw it last year with Femi. Obviously, thankfully, he's managed to make that break, and we want to see more of him.
Yeah, and of course, what is the situation with Femi Aziz, just briefly, because there's not really been a big announcement about him staying. So if you very briefly can explain what you know.
Yeah, my understanding, obviously, to date, Femi's only just turned 18. Until he turned 18, he couldn't have a contract. So Dean is speaking to him, and he will be part of the squad this season unless something changed in between them. But as far as I know, we want to keep him. As far as I know, he wants to stay. So yeah, we want to see Femi in a shirt and scoring goals. So it's my understanding he will be involved with the first team this year.
Brilliant. That's great to see some closure to him there, because it's not been something that's been as predominant as, say, Jonathan North extending his deal or Danny Green, players like that. Yeah. So I think that would have been something that fans would have been querying about, because we've seen Luke Massingham go to Chalfont recently within the last week. So to not know anything about Femi, and now we got a bit of closure, which is always good. So just finally then, where do you see Wealdstone, maybe not in 3 or 5 years, because you've touched on that already, but we're moving into a professional era now in terms of the structure, and you've appointed your manager. Where do you see us, say, in maybe 10 years' time?
I guess you just want to see the club keep moving forward. You have to be realistic on what we can achieve and where we're at the moment. But I guess from where we're at the moment, if we could sustain National League football, from where the club has been and where the club is now, over the last 10 years, the club has made massive ground. It's moved on hugely from where it was. So if we can get to that level and sustain being at that level for a number of years, then I'll see that as real success. Beyond that, who knows? But I guess being realistic and where we're at the moment and what's achievable to sustain National League football, we don't want to be a one-hit wonder. We want to get there and stay there. So that's why we need to bring in youth. We need to have the right structure, because if we don't, you've seen it with Braintree. They got through and they're straight back down. So when we go up, we want to have the right structure, everything in place so we can sustain being at that level. So that's the aim for us.
Well, it's been brilliant talking to you here, Rory.
Oh, well, likewise.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and good luck in your role as Wealdstone chairman for the foreseeable future.
Thank you very much.